Good morning to you and welcome to this Wednesday catch-up. You know, for many years I've been extremely uncomfortable about the alternative Christmas that Hollywood, Coca-Cola and others have created over most of our lifetime. And as parents and grandparents, I think most of us have been too afraid to speak the truth to our children about Christmas because we don't want to be the Grinch that stole Christmas. Then we see statements being made like, put Christ back into Christmas. And there is so much truth behind this statement, because the Santa that the media points to and that is celebrated at this time of the year takes our eyes off the truth of Christmas. So this morning, I want to ask the question, who is the real Santa? And why understanding the story of St. Nicholas and passing it on to the children will open the way for a real understanding and conversation about what this time of the year is all about. The true story of Santa Claus begins with Nicholas, who was born during the 3rd century in the village of Patara in Asia Minor. At the time, the area was Greek and is now on the southern coast of Turkey. His wealthy parents who raised him to be a devout Christian died in an epidemic while Nicholas was still very young. Obeying Jesus' words to sell what you own and give the money to the poor, Nicholas used his whole inheritance to assist the needy, the sick and the suffering. He dedicated his life to serving God and eventually was made Bishop of Myra. While still a young man, Bishop Nicholas now became known throughout the land for his generosity to those in need, his love for children, and his concern for sailors. Under the Roman Emperor Diocletian, who ruthlessly persecuted Christians at this time, Bishop Nicholas suffered for his faith. He was exiled, eventually imprisoned. The prisons were so full of bishops and priests and deacons, there was no room for the real criminals and murderers and thieves and robbers. After his release, Nicholas attended the Council of Nicaea in AD 325. He died December the 6th, AD 343, in Myra and was buried in his cathedral church, where a unique relic called manna formed in his grave. This liquid substance, said to have healing powers, fostered the growth of devotion to Nicholas. The anniversary of his death became a day of celebration, St. Nicholas Day, December the 6th. December the 19th, if you follow the Julian calendar, which I'm sure you don't. Through the centuries, many stories and legends have been told of St. Nicholas's life and his deeds. These accounts help us to understand his extraordinary character and why he is so beloved and revered as protector and helper of those in need. St. Nicholas giving gold to his father is a wonderful picture, painting. And there are many other paintings of St. Nicholas, and every time in the painting he is giving to someone. One story tells of a poor man with 3 daughters. In those days, a young woman's father had to offer prospective husbands something of value, a dowry. The larger the dowry, the better the chance that a young woman would find a good husband. I'm so glad that doesn't happen today. Without a dowry, a woman was unlikely to marry. This poor man's daughters without dowries were therefore destined to be sold into slavery. Mysteriously, on 3 different occasions, a bag of gold appeared in their home, providing the needed dowries. The bags of gold, tossed through an open window, are said to have landed in stockings or shoes left before the fire to dry. This led to the custom of children hanging stockings or putting shoes out, eagerly awaiting gifts from St. Nicholas. Sometimes the story is told with gold balls instead of bags of gold. This is why 3 gold balls, sometimes represented as oranges, are one of the symbols of St. Nicholas. And so St. Nicholas is known as the gift giver. One of the oldest stories showing St. Nicholas as a protector of children takes place long after his death. The townspeople of Myra were celebrating the good saint on the eve of his feast day when a band of Arab pirates from Crete came into the district. They stole treasures from the church of St. Nicholas to take away as booty. As they were leaving the town, they snatched a young boy, Basilios, to make him into a slave. The emir or ruler selected Basilios to be his personal cupbearer. As not knowing the language, Basilios would not understand what the king said to those around him, and therefore he couldn't be a spy. So for the next year, Basilios waited on the king, bringing his wine in a beautiful golden cup. For Basilios' parents, they were devastated at the loss of the only child. The year passed slowly and they were filled with grief. As the next St. Nicholas feast day approached, Basilios' mother would not join in the festivity, as it was now a day of tragedy for her. However, she was persuaded to have a simple observance at home, with quiet prayers for Basilios, for his safekeeping. Meanwhile, as Basilios was fulfilling his task serving the emir, he was suddenly whisked up and away. He disappeared. And then he reappeared in front of his family. Can you imagine the joy and the wonderment when Basilios amazingly appeared before his parents, still holding the king's golden cup in his hand? This is the first story told of St. Nicholas protecting children, which became his primary role in the West. Isn't that a wonderful story of protection and care and love? I think it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And there are many other great stories. In fact, there's another story that tells of three theological students who were traveling on their way to study in Athens. A wicked innkeeper robbed and murdered them, hiding their remains in a large pickled tub. It so happened that Bishop Nicholas, traveling along the same route, stopped at this very inn. In the night he dreamed of the crime, got up and summoned the innkeeper. As Nicholas prayed earnestly to God, the three boys were restored to life and wholeness. In France, the story is told of three small children wandering in their play until lost, lured and captured by an evil butcher. St. Nicholas appears and appeals to God to return them to life and to their families. And so St. Nicholas is the patron and protector of children in France. St. Nicholas famine relief was also a very big thing in those days, where people would be collecting goods as a part of a famine relief program in the name of St. Nicholas. Several stories tell of St. Nicholas and the sea. When he was young, Nicholas sought the Holy Father by making a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. There, as he walked where Jesus walked, he sought to more deeply experience Jesus' life, his passion, and his resurrection. Returning by sea, a mighty storm threatened to wreck the ship. Nicholas calmly prayed. The terrified sailors were amazed when the wind and the waves suddenly calmed, sparing them all. And so, St. Nicholas is the patron of sailors and voyagers. Other stories tell of Nicholas saving his people from famine, sparing their lives, the lives of those innocently accused, and much, much more. He did many kind and generous deeds in secret, expecting nothing in return. Within a century of his death, he was celebrated as a saint. Today, he is venerated in the East as wonder or miracle worker, in the West as patron of the great variety of persons, children, mariners, bankers, pawnbrokers, scholars, orphans, laborers, travellers, merchants, judges, paupers, marriageable maidens, students, children, sailors, victims of judicial mistakes, captives, even thieves and murderers. He is known as the friend and protector of all in trouble or in need. And there's even a list that goes out with all the names of these people. So it's amazing how huge the story of St. Nicholas is. And yet, we don't seem to see this in the media. Instead, we see something very different. St. Nicholas's patron carried stories of his favour and protection far and wide. St. Nicholas chapels were built in many seaports. As his popularity spread through the Middle Ages, he became the patron saint of Apulia in Italy, Sicily, Greece, and Lorraine in France, and many, many cities in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, Russia, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Following his baptism, Grand Prince Vladimir I brought St. Nicholas's stories and devotions to St. Nicholas, or about St. Nicholas, to his homeland, where Nicholas became the most beloved saint. Nicholas was so widely revered that thousands of churches were named for him, including 300 in Belgium, 34 in Rome, 23 in the Netherlands, and more than 400 in England. So it is amazing how his fame spread, and how so many people were touched by his ministry, by his love. Wonderful. So St. Nicholas's tomb in Myra became a popular place of pilgrimage. Because of the many wars and attacks in the region, some Christians were concerned that access to the tomb might become difficult. For both the religious and commercial advantages of a major pilgrimage site, the Italian cities of Venice and Bari vied to get the Nicholas relics. In the spring of 1087, sailors from Bari succeeded in spiriting away the bones, bringing them to Bari, a seaport on the southeastern coast of Italy. An impressive church was built over St. Nicholas's crypt, and many faithful journeyed to honour the saint who had rescued children, prisoners and sailors and famine victims, and many others through his compassion, his generosity, and the countless miracles attributed to his intercession. The Nicholas Shrine in Bari was one of medieval Europe's greatest pilgrimage centres, and Nicholas became known as the Saint in Bari. To this very day, pilgrims and tourists visit Bari's great basilica, di San Nicola. Through the centuries, St. Nicholas has continued to be venerated by Catholics and Orthodox and honoured by Protestants. By his example of generosity to those in need, especially children, St. Nicholas continues to be a model for the compassionate life. Children with St. Nicholas cookies celebrating St. Nicholas Day are seen in many, many paintings, handing cookies out to the people in the community. I know for a fact that I've never had a St. Nicholas cookie, but I'm going to look it up and get Wendy to bake some of them. They are widely celebrated in Europe on St. Nicholas's feast day, December the 6th. And they kept alive the stories of his goodness and generosity. In Germany and Poland, boys are dressed as bishops, begging alms for the poor, and sometimes for themselves. In the Netherlands and Belgium, St. Nicholas arrived on a steamship from Spain to ride a white horse on his gift-giving rounds. December the 6th is still the main day for gift-giving and merrymaking in much of Europe. For example, in the Netherlands, St. Nicholas is celebrated on the 5th, the eve of the day, by sharing candies thrown in the door, chocolate, initialed letters, small gifts and riddles. Dutch children leave carrots and hay in their shoes for the saint's horse, hoping that St. Nicholas will exchange them for small gifts. Simple gift-giving in early Advent helped preserve a Christmas day and the focus on the Christ child. Wow. You know, when you look into that story, you just see how far we as a society have got from the real truth, the story of St. Nicholas. Today, I want us to focus on the generosity of St. Nicholas, the gift giving of St. Nicholas, not the kind of gift giving that we are pushed into by the media. And this year, my family and I have decided that we're not going to go crazy buying each other lots and lots of gifts. We would rather support some very worthy charities and support the church in its mission for next year as well. So I pray that we will focus on the true meaning of Christmas. It is a celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. St. Nicholas, in his life and in his ministry, epitomized what that generosity of spirit really is over Christmas. Let's tell the children about the real meaning of Christmas. My children have a bit of a Christmas tradition. Many years ago, 13, 14 years ago, we were given a little gift of a snowman blowing his bugle, and I have used him in church before. I don't even ever remember changing the batteries. That's how long these batteries have lasted. And every year when we take our snowman out and put him by the tree and play the little jingle, Santa, St. Nicholas is coming to town. May the spirit that motivated St. Nicholas motivate us. We know that he was a man who was filled with the Holy Spirit. He was a man that was touched by God and used by God to liberate the lives of so many people. So let's allow God's Holy Spirit to fill us this Christmas with the same generosity that St. Nicholas had. And may you have a wonderful Christmas. Shine for the Lord, and I'll see you next week. If I don't see you on Sunday, I'll see you next week. God bless you.